Oh, hey, Matt, give a guy a little warning next time, why don't you? Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Troy David here at Flashback Comics in Woodbridge, Virginia, and I'm giving you the, as promised, third installment of my top fives, which has actually turned into my top 15. I've already done DC, I've already done my top 5 independent faves, and now I'm coming to the pages of Marvel Comics. And let me tell you what, it was the absolute hardest thing for me to boil it down to 5 essential stories that have stuck with me all through the years, but hey, here they are. A couple of them are so touching and heartwarming that they're bringing tears to my eyes now. In no particular order, but I'm going to start with Incredible Hulk 256. Incredible Hulk 256, and I was just flipping through it again because it's so good. Written as it was by Bill Mantlo, illustrated as it was by Sal Buscema. It is the first appearance of the Israeli character Sabra. Sabra is a special agent. In her civilian identity, she is a policewoman, and in her super identity, she works for the Israeli government, and she is drawn into battle with the Hulk, who has inadvertently found himself in the Middle East at the time. What makes this story so touching is that in a moment of calm, when Bruce Banner transforms, he befriends a young boy, a young Middle Eastern boy, and they, share a stolen melon from a street vendor, and the boy explains to Bruce his young interpretation of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, he is young and fresh-eyed and somewhat irreverent, and he explains that it all dates back to some old book that he's never even read before. Well, the story goes on. Bruce Banner will obviously transform into the Hulk. There is a battle between the Hulk and Sabra, and this young boy is caught in the conflict and unfortunately dies in the story, and the Hulk is distraught over the death of his young friend. And the Hulk sort of recounts what he could remember, fragments of the earlier conversation, and he finds it absolutely stupid that this boy died in a conflict that was going on between two people that had something to do with a book that he had never even read. It's a moving story, and it gives the character Sabra something to think about as the Hulk stomps away. The Hulk would go on to encounter the Arabian Night in the following issue. A little bit of a world tour for the Hulk, not the first time he's had a world tour. So Hulk 256 definitely goes on my top 5s. If you've never checked it out, I'd strenuously recommend it. It is good as a standalone. It can be read as part of the successive narrative. Your mileage may vary, but definitely check it out. Another one of my favorites, and probably no surprise, would be the Roger Stern written and Ron Frenz illustrated Amazing Spider-Man 248. Now, the first half of 248 actually focuses on a battle between Spider-Man and Thunderball from Thor's old villains, the Wrecking Crew. Thunderball has gained the Wrecker's crowbar and his own enchanted wrecking ball, and Spider-Man has to stop it. That's the main story, and that's good enough. The backup story, however, the backup story deals with a young boy in a hospital. His name's Tim, and Peter comes as Spider-Man to visit him. Now, he interacts with this boy, Tim, and he takes him swinging around the city. It's fun, it's lighthearted. Spider-Man explains the genesis, his origin to Tim, how he was bitten by a spider and how he did not stop a burglar who would later go on to kill someone that was close to him, and how he now is Spider-Man out of a sense of responsibility for that one flawed decision that he made. Before the story is over, Spider-Man shares his identity with Tim, and Tim, wide-eyed, promises that he will never, ever, ever reveal Peter's secret to anybody. Well, that's because Tim is suffering terminal leukemia and doesn't have many weeks left to live. You realize this in the closing panels of the story when you see the Daily Bugle article in the foreground. It's deep, it's moving, it's the backup story. It's like 8 pages long. It's not even the main sequence story, and yet it packs so much emotionality into just those few pages. Ron Frenz is as good as he has ever been in this story, and Roger Stern's penmanship is, oh my God, it moves me even just to think about it. If you have not ever read Spider-Man 248, and I'm sorry for the spoiler, but definitely read it yourself. The story will move you even though you know what's coming. And now I'm going to pick it up a little bit because those are two heavies back to back. One of my favorites is John Byrne's Fantastic Four 258. Now, John Byrne is the artist and writer on the book at the time. And the book focuses not on the Fantastic Four, but on Dr. Doom. It's a very striking cover. It's a yellow background, and you see an armored hand tearing the cover, revealing the image of Dr. Doom standing on a castle battlement, looking over at his capital being rebuilt. What happened to the capital? Well, long story slightly shorter is Dr. Doom was deposed and replaced by King Zorba, who was brother to Rodolfo. Zorba was not a good king, and the country fell into disrepair, and Zorba was eventually deposed, and Doom took power again. The Fantastic Four couldn't stop Doom from taking over, but Doom promised them that he was going to rebuild the country, and then he was going to get back onto his vengeance quest. Well, first promise first, he rebuilds the country. He gets the roads repaired, he gets the economy moving again, he reestablishes his punishment for criminals and gets crime off the streets. It's safe to walk around. People are actually genuinely happy to have Dr. Doom back in power. Seems like it's very upside down, but once you actually start reading it and see how Doom governs his country, it'll make more sense. Doom has a small boy, Kristoff. Kristoff came under his protection during that same story with Zorba. Kristoff's mother was killed, and Doom took Kristoff as ward of the state and raised him in Castle Doom. Saw to the boy's every single need, his education, his clothes, everything. And the boy actually has genuine affection for Dr. Doom. He calls him master, but he might as well be calling him father. You can feel the emotionality, again, in these pages, but not quite as dark as the other two stories. In any event, the story closes with Dr. Doom coming back to that other promise about his vengeance on the Fantastic Four. Dr. Doom takes the body of Tyros the Terrible. Remember him as Terrax the Tamer, Herald of Galactus? Well, Doom empowers Tyros similarly to the time that Doom himself had usurped the power of the Silver Surfer. He sends Tyros off to fight the Fantastic Four, and that would be the next two issues after this. But 258 as a standalone with Dr. Doom rebuilding his country and his relationship with Kristoff. You know, you see Doom get up in the morning and have breakfast and yada yada yada. It's really, really good. It's a behind the scenes of a character that you don't normally get to see behind the scenes in this fashion. Tip of the hat to John Byrne. That was most excellent. Number 4 in my list. I'm going to skip over to something pretty heavy and cosmic. I know what you're thinking. Troy David's going to say the Avengers Kree-Skrull War. Nope, because I've said that one a whole bunch of times. He's going to say one of the life cycles of Thanos. That's another video. You can watch the 3 life cycles of Thanos on your own time. Right now, I am actually going to name Jim Starlin one of my favorite Jim Starlin pieces. From Epic Magazine, Epic Illustrated, issue number 3 and onward until its conclusion, was Jim Starlin's Metamorphosis Odyssey. Metamorphosis Odyssey introduces us to the character Vanth Dreadstar. Dreadstar continues on into the pages of The Price, the Dreadstar graphic novel, the Dreadstar series, but Metamorphosis Odyssey gets us to that Dreadstar. It takes us into the conflict of the galaxy that Dreadstar starts in, destroys that galaxy, and puts Dreadstar at the precipice of the story to come. Jim Starlin is as good as he has ever been, considering that these characters and situations don't have the ongoing longevity that Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock and Thanos had. Metamorphosis Odyssey is amazingly good, astoundingly good, and just as well developed and founded as any of other Jim Starlin's cosmic works. So, if you can pick up the Metamorphosis Odyssey, it's a little hard finding the Epic Magazine. Epic Illustrated magazine. It was great, but it's out there. The series has been collected and reprinted and colorized, so you can check out the new colored version as opposed to the original black and white, although I also like that. Metamorphosis Odyssey, put that on the list of things. And lastly, this is a two-part story. It took place in the pages of Master of Kung Fu. Writer Doug Mensch, illustrator Paul Gulacy. I've mentioned these two before in other videos. I'm going to mention them again. There is a two-part story that introduces the character Shen Kui, Claws of the Cat, and the second half of the story, Fight Without Pity. These two are so good. Read them back to back, absolutely. The artwork is cinematic in its layout, and Doug Mensch's scripting and characterizations are just astounding. You see the character Shang-Chi working for British MI6. He has gone into Hong Kong to contact a deep cover British agent who is involved romantically with Shen Kui. Shen Kui at one point in time was working for the Communist Chinese, but now he no longer does. Shang-Chi does not know this. He is told that he is to recover documents about his father, the Devil Doctor Fu Manchu. What he does not realize is that these documents were not stolen from the British. The British learned of them and were trying to steal them from the Chinese government. Shang-Chi is a little disillusioned with the, as he calls them, games of deceit and death. And so he recovers the documents, tears them up and throws them into the China Sea, and he would be done with everything except Shen Kui will not let Shang-Chi go without a fight. So we have Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, fighting a character who is his every equal in the martial arts. The two characters have trained from almost the exact same young age, and their fight goes back and forth. It's an up and down pitched battle. Shang-Chi is thinking to himself that this fight actually has no reason, but he can't get out of it. It's actually Juliet. It's the former British agent who has her heart stolen by Shen Kui who stops the fight. It's poignantly beautiful. It's something that you absolutely have to see. It's poetic, it's romantic, it's action-packed. It's everything that makes the Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu series great. So, in a nutshell, there are 5 of the best things I think I've ever read from Marvel Comics, and in no way do I mean to cast any ill lights or disrespect the works of other writers and artists. There's so many good things. How do you just choose 5? Well, that's 5 of them. There's plenty more. I will see you guys next time in the next segment, where I will hopefully have even more interesting things to talk about.